Welcome to the 1905 podcast. Joe and I have been going to Stamford Bridge for over 30 years. For the past 3 years, we've been exchanging voice notes on everything from the highs in Porto to the lows of Potter. Each week, this podcast will take you inside our unfiltered thoughts on all things Chelsea, sharing our view from Gate 13 of the Matthew Harding stand. Let's hit the notes. Oh my God, the final whistle has just gone. What have we just watched? What have we just watched? Oh my God. Chelsea have just dismantled, demolished probably the best team in the world, let's be fair. And I'm a bit speechless. I'm a little bit speechless, which isn't very good for a podcast, is it? Okay, right. We all saw... I don't know where to start this. Okay, we all saw PSG absolutely... They've smashed everyone. We watched them smash Inter Milan in the Champions League final. We watched them as they were throughout the Champions League run. We saw them against Real Madrid in the semi-final, and everyone's like, this is the best team in the world, one of the best teams for a long, long time. And Chelsea are going to be humbled. I sent Joe a message, which I'll probably put on our Instagram, that said I just had a feeling that we might win. But the feeling was built on hope more than expectation. And I just thought, I wonder if we might do a Bayern Munich or a Man City in Porto and just come out and just pull it off in that kind of old school Chelsea way that has been our want. And we did it, didn't we? From minute one, from second one, Chelsea were flawless. We came out. The game plan that Maresca set up, and we'll talk a lot more about Maresca, I think, on this pod, was brilliant. But the way the players executed it, the work rate, the passion, it was just spot on. And I don't know about everyone else watching, I was kind of getting quite nervous for them during all of the fucking crazy pre-match show and all that kind of stuff. You've got Robbie Williams doing his stuff, the anthem, the slightly ridiculous let's get ready to rumble boxing stuff. And then they come out and you're like, okay, just start well, lads. Just let's not get embarrassed. Let's just start well. And to be honest, we were brilliant. PSG didn't get in a half in the first 6 minutes, I don't think. We were superb. You had that really good early chance, a credible touch by João Pedro around the corner, and Palmer, so close, but you sort of thought, is that the chance? And it really reminded me of that Man City game in Porto, where we, again, very similar, started brilliantly, but we kind of missed all these little half chances. Werner and all those kind of stuff wasn't quite working. You thought, is it going to cost us? But no, not of it. And I mean, where do you start with Palmer? Talk about a big game player. We've seen probably the best of the big game players certainly in Chelsea history, in Didier Drogba. And you thought, is there anyone who could ever step up to the mantle? He did it in the Conference League final. And wow, what he did today. I mean, the 2 goals themselves, just how beautifully taken they were. It sort of reminded you of, that's Palmer. That's the bit that we'd been missing, where he's been smashing those shots and it was calm again. Just brilliant. And then the weight of the pass for João Pedro, and God, has he not quickly become one of your favourite Chelsea players for a while? The finish was just a joke, wasn't it? He was superb. And Delap comes on and is so unlucky not to score twice himself, but again, superb himself. We are really looking like we have got so many options going into next season. And it's so exciting. I'm going to keep this voice note pretty short, to be fair, because I want to get back in and watch the celebrations. I've just seen them having a big fight on the pitch with Donnarumma and Luis Enrique. So anyone who tries to say that the teams weren't taking it seriously, we've watched the games, Chelsea fans, I'm sure. You guys listening, we know the reality. Every team out here is taking this tournament bloody seriously. For the teams outside of Europe, it's the biggest thing they could be playing in. for the European teams who were here, you look at Real Madrid, you look at PSG tonight, that these teams are here to win it. And we have just put in one of the statement performances that I can remember. And God, if you can't enjoy nights like this, what is the point? I mean, that was just brilliant. There's so much more I need to say, but I just wanted to just give a quick reaction as the finals had gone. And Enzo Maresca, I'll finish it by saying this. We did a podcast in March where I was really questioning whether you were the right man and what the plan was. You clearly have a plan, my man, and I'm really, really impressed with what you're building at the moment. And to all those who doubt the owners, we've been pretty strong on this from day one of the podcast. If you listen back, we've always felt there was something building. We liked the fact that there was a strategy. And, you know, there's going to be setbacks. It's not all going to be great. But when you see a team that young doing what they did today, you're literally watching these boys turn into men before our eyes. We've seen them struggling this season in February, March, thinking, oh God, like, how are we going to win a game again? You see them put a performance in like that tonight, and it just got to make you really proud to be a Chelsea fan. That was just fantastic. And I'm going to go back in and watch us lift the World Club Cup, where we will be world champions for the next 4 years. Let that soak in. Sorry, Jamie Carragher, you're going to have to look it on our arm for 4 years. Love it.
Good morning and welcome to the 1905 Chelsea Notes podcast and the current home of the world champions. Yes, after 3 or 4 weeks of intense heat and pressure, Chelsea have finally and quite incredibly dismantled the best team in Europe. And it was no fluke, there was no injustice, it was all done on hard work, skill, tactical awareness, and pure determination, quite frankly. And we'll get onto a lot of these things in a moment. I think what I've been speaking and crying out for from this Chelsea team for many, many years is a performance against a big team where Chelsea play and you say to yourselves, yeah, we're going to do this today, because you believe in it. And I've got to be honest, before the game started, Chris was a lot more chipper than me about the game. I'm usually the other way around. It's usually me that's the one that's a bit more glass half full, and Chris gets quite nervous about these games. But I was the one, I have to say on this occasion, where I thought that PSG could really do a number on us. And I didn't want to be embarrassed in the last game of, in a final, basically. I didn't want to be embarrassed. And it was nothing short of sensational. The manager has to take all the credit. Enzo Maresca has had criticism after criticism all of last season, pretty much. The occasional bit of respite now and again when we would win an occasional game against, say, like a Liverpool. But overall, we were always kind of considered to be a bit of a laughing stock in the transfer market. The players we bought weren't good enough. The transfer policy is ridiculous. They're all too young. There's no leaders in the team. And you can go through any number of reasons why Chelsea weren't going to do anything last season and obviously next season. But like we've said, the manager needs to be given time. And you could argue that it's a one-off shootout in the final. But Enzo Maresca provided one of the all-time great performances last night. I've messaged Chris this morning and I wanted to give it some thought overnight. I didn't want to rush into this voice note like I sometimes do. And I cannot, for the life of me, figure out anybody who played poorly. And not just that, the formation change from Enzo Maresca, which basically meant that having Reece James and Caicedo dropping deep when Chelsea had possession of the ball, particularly in the first half. So when Trevor Chalobah or Levo Cole had possession of the ball deep in our own area, you noticed that Reece James and Moises Caicedo would drop deep to basically dummy to receive that ball, and then it would actually be the PSG midfielders pushing up onto us, which allowed the space for Cole Palmer to drop into behind the line, and Chelsea got through that line time and time again, and it was a joy to watch. And I've never seen an explosion of goals like that, because Palmer could have scored one, that brilliant one that he curled just wide of the post before we got his first goal. And quite frankly, it could have been any score in that first half. We gave PSG barely any room to play. We pressurised them high. As Enzo Maresca said himself, that first 10 minutes was perfect. The whole game plan from start to finish in that first half was absolutely perfect. You got 11 players on the field. You don't know how they're going to react to the heat, to the pressure of the situation, the opposition you're playing against. You mentioned it, Chris, the flyover, Donald Trump in the stands, the fanfare, all the music and dancing that's going on beforehand. A lot of these players will not have been used to that. And it was actually PSG who kind of froze on the day and kind of froze in that first half. The moment they got no joy out of Chelsea, and that moment their first goal went in, it never got any better. I expected a reaction from Paris Saint-Germain, but it never came. Chelsea were the ones that were on the front foot. They were the ones doing the pressing and generally kind of being the aggressor. They gave literally anybody who had the ball at the back, including the goalkeeper, it was press, press, press. And in that searing heat, I just got nothing but admiration for all of them. Reece James, again, has been said on many interviews and podcasts that he's not a midfield player. He can't play in there. And look, listen, I think Reece James is arguably the best right back in world football. You can throw Hakimi in there, but he made Hakimi look rather foolish last night in some ways. You can throw in Trent Alexander-Arnold and whoever else. But for me, when Reece James plays fullback, he's incredible. However, what he did last night by having Reece James on that right-hand side allowed Gusto, and by the way, I'm going to mention Gusto here because I've gunned him for the last 3 or 4 months, really. He's not been good. He's been very poor, in and out of possession, giving goals away, mistake after mistake after mistake. Looks very uncomfortable playing with Enzo Maresca's system. However, last night, by having Reece James in that right-hand side, he kind of, not playing as fullback, but when Gusto went and he was allowed to be the old Gusto, which was basically a bombing up and down fullback who would cross the ball, Reece James, all he did was come over and cut that space off. He knows how to play fullback. Obviously, he's the best in the world at it. And so it allowed Gusto to be free. And it was just mind-blowing how Chelsea kept up that pressure and that level of performance for 45 minutes. The goals, just outstanding. The first goal, beautiful finish into that bottom left-hand corner as we look at the goal. And then the Palmer second goal is more brilliant because I've watched it a few times today. And he cuts inside, he gets into that central area from the right-hand position, and he dummies once. And if you see it again, I thought it was only one time. He fakes, he goes to shoot, he fakes again. It's such a delicate little feint, and it sells. I forget the PSG defender that was in the way of it. He sells him, and he just buries that ball. Same thing as the first goal into that bottom left-hand corner, giving Donnarumma absolutely no chance. And you'll notice for those two goals, neither one of them was hit with real malice. They were just precision passes right into that bottom corner, and they were wonderful. And then you get onto that third and final goal. This was the pinnacle for me of the Chelsea midfield working perfectly in harmony. Caicedo and Reece dropping into that little half space just in front of the Chelsea back four. PSG thinking that we're going to give it short and give it short again. No, they dropped in. Chalobah threw straight into Cole Palmer's feet. Cole Palmer on the half turn, pushing forward, dribbling forward, driving the team upfield, gets all the way just outside the PSG 18-yard box, waits for that lovely little run from João Pedro, who just goes again, the other side of Marvin Mendes, and literally dinks that ball over Donnarumma like he's not even there. One of the world's best goalkeepers, just dink, thanks for coming, 3-0 Chelsea. And at that point, I'm sitting there with my kids and I'm going, what the bloody hell am I just witnessing here? I am still, there's a part of me that I've got a little bit of a goosebumps. I'm still shocked that we've gone and done what we did in the way we did it. You can win any game of football with a lucky penalty, someone gets red carded and it gives you the game a little bit easier. This was won fairly and squarely with hard work, skill, determination, tactical prowess from Maresca, which was phenomenal, like literally so good. And I don't want to. That's not over egging anything. I've said to Chris earlier on, and people might say, "Oh, you're getting carried away." I don't think I am. I'm trying to figure out. I've been watching Chelsea since I was 4 years old. I'm in my 40s now, and I am struggling to think of a game of the opposition that we played against. For one, absolutely world class. They are battered everyone they played against handsomely. No one has been dealt an easy ride by them. They just caned everybody. And to a man, how each and every Chelsea player, whether they came on as a substitute or started that match, did not put a foot wrong. The two centre halves were world class. Gusto and Cucurella, exceptional. All the midfield players, take your pick. And João Pedro to Delap, who we'll come on to a bit later on in the next voice note. Each and every player didn't just play a role and did a job. They were all fantastic, and they had to be fantastic to get a result like that against PSG, who are, I don't want to over-egg it again, but they are a world-class football team. And I can't think of a time where I've gone, Chelsea haven't played better than that. They certainly haven't played better than that in the time that the owners have been in charge. These new owners that have been in charge, Chelsea have not played a better game of football than that, ever. And I'm trying to go back and think to games where we won really good 3-2 wins, 4-2 wins, whatever, 4-1 win. Chelsea didn't concede a goal. They defended like it meant something to them, which is what, as fans, I want to see. If you're a Chelsea fan now and you don't really care about that, then you're wrong. I'm sorry, you're just wrong. It has to mean something. When those players cross the white line, it has to mean something to them. Otherwise, I just do not feel invested in them. And that's where my brain switches off so quickly when I see these people kind of give 50% of their quality or their effort, more to the point. And going to that second half, I'm thinking, okay, if PSG get one in the first 3 or 4 minutes, we give away a cheap goal or something, they get a penalty, who knows? You're never thinking this is over because they are a great side. But Chelsea gave them nothing. There was no real sniff. There was a couple of real half chances. There was the one where Sanchez did have to make a good save to his right-hand side from Dembele, but they're going to get something in a game of football, in a 90-minute game of football. And Sanchez turned that around the post, and Sanchez made 1 or 2, I would class as really good half saves from distance, shots that he should probably get, but he was very clean, very tidy. He got caught right at the very end of the game where he hung on to the ball just a fraction too long and he got pressured, but the ball only went out for a throw and it didn't make any odds to the game. But it was noticeable that Sanchez in himself and Chelsea as a game plan, they were not keeping it at the back and letting Dembele and all those other players press. They were going, okay, well, we'll do 1 or 2 passes. Even if we did that, then we went wide, long and wide, to out towards Palmer, João Pedro, when he would drop over there, Gusto. They were going that sort of direction. I feel like not mentioning Neto or not mentioning Enzo Fernandez or whoever, I feel like I'm doing them a disservice because Caicedo was just a joke last night. The ball breakups and the tackles and the toe pokes and the little flicks and getting his body in the right position to spin a player to get Chelsea on the attack. I feel like by not mentioning them, I'm doing them dirty. But believe me, we haven't got time to mention everybody in each note. But my God, they were all wonderful. But that second half performance was different. It had to be a bit grittier, had to be a bit dirtier. But obviously, when we did make those changes and Liam Delap came on, I said to my son, I said, he is all wrong for these Paris Saint-Germain centre-backs. Pedro has run them ragged. I said, I hope I'm right when I say this, but he's going to cause them all sorts of problems. Literally within a minute of him coming on, ball up to the lap, he bullies the defender, through on goal, cuts in, hits that fantastic shot to the top right-hand corner, which Donnarumma obviously just palms away, which is just so unlucky because it deserved the goal. Then obviously he goes through a bit later on, and Donnarumma comes out again, and literally knew nothing about it, but he got his foot on the ball and he turned it away for a corner for Chelsea. But if we'd gone and got 5 and 6 last night, nobody could have been. It would not have been deemed a lucky result. It would have been fully deserved. And I think Luis Enrique is going to be so shocked by what he's seen last night in that Chelsea performance. And we're not going to talk about next season or anything like that at the moment. There's no need to. Let's enjoy the moment. Let's enjoy what we've seen. But you saw skill, you saw passion, you saw, say, tactical awareness, you saw a defence that was not willing to give up any chances, all trying for one another. There was a little period in the second half where there was a bit of a pinball in our box. I think it might have hit one of our players on the arm, but his arm was by his side. But they crossed it, we blocked it, it went back out. They crossed it again, we blocked it again. And it was so beautiful to see 11 Chelsea players go, well, you ain't getting that crossing. You can keep trying, you can keep coming, but you are not getting that fucking crossing. And I was just like, go on, boys. And it was just wonderful. There's nothing more I can add to that game that would make it sound any better. It was, like I've said, arguably the best Chelsea performance. And I know people go, oh, you're just being reactionary to what we've just seen. I'm not. I'm really not. This, to me, was a perfect performance. If I had to give it anything, to be fair, I had to give it 99 out of 100. That's how I would describe that game to anybody who didn't see it. Because I've got nothing to complain about. I've got absolutely nothing to complain about. And players that I've been, like I say, I've been a little bit down on, like Gusto and Sanchez, stepped up last night. And I think if Rob Sanchez continues to play like that and Chelsea play a much different style of football, I don't think he's a bad goalkeeper, and I don't think he really needs replacing that badly, because Chelsea have got so many goals in this team now. One side note I would just say very quickly before I forget is that it was interesting that Nicholas Jackson didn't come on last night. And people might say, oh, does it really matter? He didn't need to. But the fact that you've got João Pedro who's come off the beach and is starting ahead of him, and now you've got Delap who's coming on again a few weeks from Ipswich Town, been at the club a few weeks, and he's now coming on in as his replacement. I think that spoke volumes last night. I would not be surprised if Nicholas Jackson is at the door in the summer. It wouldn't surprise me one little bit. But that's a story for another day. I think the fact that Chelsea now get to keep this badge on their chest for 4 years, they're the first team to win this style of tournament. The fact that Chelsea have won everything in football, yet again, they added the Conference League, we've gone and won that. They've added a new Club World Cup tournament trophy, and we've gone and won that as well. Just being Chelsea sometimes is the most beautiful thing, because we're going to piss a lot of people off by winning this, and some won't care and whatever, but you cannot not take notice of that game last night. And Chelsea doing what they did will definitely send ripples across Europe. I can guarantee you now, anyone watching that, whether you're Real Madrid, Barcelona, or anybody else, you'll be going, well, I don't fancy playing them too much. So nothing but respect for the manager, nothing but respect for those players, and nothing but respect from me to them. Different gear last night, boys. Be proud, enjoy everything, enjoy your holiday. You've worked your bloody socks off, and I couldn't be proud of any of you. So we'll talk a bit more a bit later on, but thank you, boys. Appreciate everything.
Yeah, really well said, Joe. I was thinking that this morning as well, actually. When was the last time Chelsea played that well? And it does seem like a crazy thing to say, doesn't it, when you say it like that? But in a game of that magnitude, to play like we did and to dominate a team like that, it really was just incredible, to be fair. And I think you almost get the sense the players surprised themselves a little bit. I'm sure they had a belief. You could tell they had a belief, actually, couldn't you, before the game? All of the sound bites coming out of the group were really, really good. It was kind of like, Reece James was like, we're here to win, and Colwell was saying similar stuff. So they obviously had a belief, but the way they were buzzing after the game, I think they were like, wow, okay, yeah, we've just done something pretty special there, which they really did. I'm in Munich today, so I flew from London to Munich this morning. I had to be up at 3:30 a.m. to fly here. I'm here for work, and obviously going to bed last night at about 11:30. I just couldn't get to sleep because it was just buzzing. Yeah, my mind was just sort of, I don't know, it was just whirring really with kind of the craziness of it all. I think that kind of, was it 15-minute spell in the first half where we just tore the best team in the world apart and just made this huge statement on such a big occasion. My wife, Gabby, is not into football. She obviously knows how important Chelsea is to me. But I think when she sort of was watching a little bit with me and saw, the halftime show with Coldplay and Robbie Williams and obviously the Donald Trump ceremony, ridiculous thing. I mean, that was, it's something in itself, isn't it? But I tell you what, it's going to have made headlines if nothing else. I mean, it's not what you'd want, especially not being him of all the people in the world. But wow, to have a moment, I think she was like, oh, well, this is a really big game then. This is a huge occasion, isn't it? It's the same venue where the World Cup final will be played next year. You know, this was a serious occasion. And then obviously, yeah, the way that the PSG players and manager reacted after the game, which was pretty shameful, really, just showed what an occasion it was. And yeah, you kind of get caught up in it all, don't you? What I wanted to do is I wanted to do exactly what you said we shouldn't do, Joe, on the last note, which is I wanted to go player by player and just do a one-liner on each player, really. So because it was such a good performance and so flawless from back to front, as you said, I think they deserve it. So I'm gonna go through with a quick thought from me on each player. So one is Rob Sanchez. He has, let's give him credit, completely put everything I've said about him this season into the bin in the last couple of months. He's been pretty flawless, actually. When you look at our run since April and the number of clean sheets that we've got, the number of big saves he's now made, the number of claims that he's made, he really, really has been very good. He obviously has that brain fart moment in him, but it's almost always with the ball to his feet. And you said it to me before, Joe, that in a different era, you know, in the Petr Cech era, he'd be a very fine goalkeeper because, you know, Petr Cech was never asked to do that. He was just asked to play long. And actually, he was, as we saw yesterday, he's absolutely fine when he goes long. And what it really made me think is to do a bit of a 180 on him and say, if everything they say about Penders is true and they really think he could be as good as everyone's saying and we believe, and he's obviously very highly rumoured to be going to Strasbourg on loan for a year, and all the talk is coming out of the club and that you read is that they don't want another kind of Courtois situation where he went on loan on West Atletico for too long, fell in love with Madrid and never really felt connected to Chelsea, and obviously became a big snake when he came back. So they don't want to do that with Penders. I'm going to learn that lesson. I kind of think, and it's a massive U-turn for me, but maybe you give Sanchez this season, don't do anything in the market, stay with what you've got, let Penders go out on loan, and then in 12 months' time, if Penders has a great loan, which we hope he does at Strasbourg, you bring him back in to either be immediate number one or to certainly fight to be number one. That would be my big U. I mean, that is a huge U-turn for me because I've been saying we have to get rid of him, but he really, really has impressed me in the last couple of months and particularly actually in this tournament. So that's my shout for him. Gusto, you've said it, Joe, and I think he almost is in a similar camp where I think you and I would both have probably taken a good offer on Gusto a game ago, let's be fair, because it felt like the way that Maresca was playing just didn't suit him. But what we saw yesterday is if Maresca is willing to play a different way and it means that suddenly you get an overlapping fullback that Gusto is so good at, to be fair, we saw that in his first season, you get a very different Gusto. And he's another one where you kind of go, well, yeah, I think you keep him, and if you were to sell him, you'd want a pretty good offer for him. You'd want big money, wouldn't you? So, yeah, massive shout to him. I thought he was superb. You knew he wouldn't score, though, didn't you? When he went through, you were like, he's never going to score here. And he obviously had his shot blocked, but then showed brilliant composure to then not panic, check, and then play it to Palmer, who obviously then was just ridiculous. The Cobham centre-backs, not talked about enough, the fact it was two Cobham boys playing at the back together. Colwell, I think, is just growing as a leader in front of our eyes, isn't he? He was brilliant on the pitch. He has been for quite a while now, and he's actually really fantastic off the pitch. When you hear him talk, he's got such charisma. He's a real throwback to... He's a real personality, and you can see he will be a leader at the club, I think, for many years to come. And he's just a class act. And Trevor Chalobah, all of the stuff. A year ago, he was in the bomb squad, captaining an under-21 side, but still being such a great professional. He's come back in, and wow, two brilliant performances in big finals. And there's still rumours that Chelsea might take an offer on him, the pure profit stuff. So certainly, I think most of us wouldn't do that. But if you were to consider it, he's got to be a £50 million player, hasn't he, now in this market? I mean, that sounds crazy, but seriously, the money being thrown around for players, I would put him in that category. So I'm hoping that Chelsea don't do anything silly. He's such a good person to have around the club. and he was brilliant. Cucurella, the master of dark arts, the king of shithousery. Diego Costa would be proud. It's a silly thing to say, but it was actually really important, I think, what he did in that second half. He almost led the destruction of the game. Everything you wanted to happen in the second half did. We just didn't let PSG get into their rhythm and start playing their football. And he wound them up so much to the point that someone pulled his hair, and he's almost guaranteed you a red card a season alone, isn't he, because of him doing that. He was brilliant, I thought, defensively again on the pitch. And yeah, I just thought he really led what was that dark art side of Chelsea, which you need to have to win trophies. It's so important. It's the bit that none of us wanted to see, where we felt like a bit of a soft touch to teams. And I don't know if people notice, but obviously PSG have this sort of famous kickoff routine they do now, where they basically boot the ball out for a throw right near your corner flag and then press you as quickly as they can. They obviously did it at the start of the second half, and it was Gusto, to be fair. He just took his time. He just walked over. He was in no rush. He was like, yeah, I knew you were going to do that. Took his time, gave it to Reece James, and Reece James just pumped it back up the pitch. And I was just like, do you know what? Right from kickoff, we've gone, yeah, we know what you're up to. And I just thought it sort of summed up, actually, our personality, really, in not being bullied into the way they wanted to play. N'Golo Caicedo, I'll talk about next. When we lost Kante, who was just a treat, wasn't he? To be honest, and an irreplaceable player, an irreplaceable man in the squad for so many years. One of those players where everyone would say it's like having an extra man on the pitch. He was that good. He looked irreplaceable. In comes Caicedo, and it's a big shout because Kante is undoubtedly one of the best midfielders of his generation. But wow, have we maybe got an heir apparent here? And he's so young, he could be better than him. That's the scary thing. I don't know what else to say apart from that. I just think that even if you're comparing anyone with Kante, they've got to be damn good, and Caicedo is. And the fact that he was such a big tout going into the game with his ankle. There was a clip of him on social media where he was like limping in New York about 2 days before, and I was like, oh no, he's not right, and he's going to be, if he does play, he's going to be playing at 70%, and is it going to be a real problem? Just unbelievable, wasn't he? Just ridiculous. Reece James, I think out of the whole squad, he's the one I was just the most happy for. Like, what a journey he's been on. There's an amazing photo of him just before I think he walks up to pick up the trophy. He just looks so proud of that moment. He's been at the club since he was about 6, and he is leading this new era of Chelsea. And doesn't it just feel amazing to have him on the pitch and contributing? I thought he's been really good for a while now, but he's been really good in this tournament. How important he was in the Premier League run-in with big moments like that assist against Man United, his big free kick in the Club World Cup. It's just a joy to have him back on the pitch, isn't he? And everything you just said, Joe, about how good he is, I'll echo, but I was just so happy for him, and it's such a likeable guy to have leading your club. It's fantastic. Enzo Fernandez, I didn't necessarily think it was his best game on the ball, but off the ball, his work rate was unbelievable. He led the press, and again, in terms of what it meant to him and emotion, there's a great shot of him at full time in tears. We know that the Club World Cup hits a little different to players in sort of South America. It really does mean a bit more to them than maybe European clubs. I think that might change. And my prediction is that as this tournament grows, I think it might change. But European clubs have tended to be a little bit snobbish, really, about the competition. Enzo Fernandez was in tears, and he's becoming a bit of a talisman, isn't he, for the club and for the era. And yeah, again, another player that I hold my hands up and was quite critical of earlier in the season, but has just been brilliant. So huge shout to him. Pedro Neto, arguably Chelsea's best player of the tournament. Palmer might nick that with his final performance, but he was brilliant again. The thing I'd say about him is he was up against one of the best players in the world, certainly one of the best fullbacks in the world in Hakimi, and he won that battle. Defensively, his work rate was unbelievable. There was that part in the first half where he ran back. I mean, he did it time and time again, but there was one that really stuck out where Hakimi had got him, and I was like, who's that chasing him? And it was Neto chasing like 80 yards to keep with him. Obviously, he's got the pace. He was brilliant. In the first half when he skinned Hakimi, it was quite notable that Hakimi sort of picked him up. There was kind of a respectful kind of handshake, and it was almost like, there's respect for what Neto's doing. And he's always been a player that I think we've really liked on the pod, and I've felt that there's a player there which you want to get a bit more output from, and hopefully he's just going to grow and grow in his Chelsea career. So huge shout to him. Cole Palmer, we've spoken about Palmer so much. What I'll add on Palmer is I was just really, really impressed with his pre-match interview stuff. I don't know for those who saw it, but he said really openly actually that he said, I had a bad run. He said, actually it wasn't a bad run, it was terrible. It was a terrible run of not scoring, because he'd said at the start of the season he'd been going so well. He thought he could have scored so many goals. And he said, it wasn't good enough. And for him, he wants to be scoring 20 Premier League goals every year. That's his minimum. And I was like, wow, what a brilliant attitude. We know he's got a good attitude. We know he's a confident guy. But to kind of come in and go, I want to score 20 goals a season minimum. That's my standard. And I said it earlier in the pod about him being a big game player. But yeah, when you watch those goals back again and again, it's just unreal. We are honestly privileged, I think, as Chelsea fans to be watching him in a blue shirt every week. And then finally, João Pedro. Just again, what a performance. He just reeks of class, doesn't he? Everything he does, he turns 50-50 balls into his ball. His touch is excellent. His finishing's been superb. When you sign certain players and they just feel like they should fit Chelsea, you can't really put your finger on it. It's just, there's a fit there, and he just feels like it to me. He just feels a really good fit, and actually probably at a really good time where we've got other young Brazilians joining at exactly the same time with Estevão and Andre Santos. And he's come into the group in the space of a week and just looks like he's been there for years, doesn't he? He was brilliant. And I'm just going to quickly shout out for the subs because everyone played a part. Kin Disbury Hall, if he does leave this summer, he leaves as a proper cult hero, doesn't he? Came on, closed the game out really well with his energy. He's really never let us down. Disbury Hall all season. I think he deserves actually to go and find football somewhere because he's a great player and seems like a great lad. So credit to him. And Kunku, this tournament's been a bit of a turnaround for him, isn't it? He's my pick for a surprise stay. I've got a funny feeling he might stay this season. By the time you listen to this, he's probably already signed for Bayern Munich. But I've got a funny feeling out of nowhere he might be the one that stays with the new way that we're playing. And I'd love to see him get one more season to see if we can get the real best out of Nkunku, because there's obviously a quality player there. Delap was so unlucky not to score twice, as we've already said. But the thing on Delap is the fact that we have that strength in depth now is just a game changer for us, isn't it? To be able to bring on João Pedro and bring on Delap, and as Joe said, someone come on and just be like a defender's nightmare. It's going to be whichever way round that is all season, and if Jackson stays as well, we are going to cause so many teams problems. It's going to be just fantastic. And then finally, obviously, the first man to come on, Andre Santos. We're all really excited about him. And again, the strength in depth. To have Enzo Fernandez coming off, who, as I said, is a talisman, but not really feel any effects of that because you're bringing on such a good player in Andre Santos, just shows the strength and depth that we have. And I was thinking the PSG players must have been seeing that sub and going, right, so they're bringing off Fernandez and now bringing on Andre Santos, who they know has been one of the best players in the French league last season. They must have been thinking, what else have they got? It's just a real statement of where we're at as a club. And yeah, just very, very proud. And final word to Maresca. We've said a lot about him already, but you hear a lot of other coaches and managers in the game talking about him very highly, actually, in saying that what he's building is pretty special and the way he sets up Chelsea is very, very good. I think we saw why he gets so much respect in this tournament actually a few times, but particularly yesterday. And I hope that, and we'll be careful, I think, on the pod to try and do it as well, that when things do dip this season, and they we'll have bad runs again, we'll lose games, of course we will, that people give him a little bit more grace and remember what he did in the last couple of months of this season in not just making sure we hit our targets, but really building a team that I think the rest of the world has looked at and really thinks there's something quite special going on. And I'd love to know how many new fans Chelsea have got from what we did last night. But I'm guessing there's quite a few across the world, or they're young fans watching their first football, or neutrals watching the World Cup final, who are now thinking about getting a Chelsea shirt with Cole Palmer on the back. Because I know I am. But yeah, over to you, Joe, to finish. I'll put a question out to you. What do you think that players in world football who Chelsea might want to sign are thinking when they watch that performance? Because it was special, and as we know, players are watching this, right? Other players of other clubs are watching these kind of big games, and it must have sent a few shockwaves. Yeah, over to you. End of the season, but what an end. And thank you for everyone who's been listening in. We've done 65 plus episodes in our first ever season of doing the podcast. Both absolutely loved it. It's been so much fun. Thank you to everyone who's been listening. We're going to take a little break over the summer, as the players will, and obviously we'll take a few weeks off, but then we'll be back. Don't worry about that. We'll be back to preview the new season. And hit subscribe if you haven't already, wherever you listen. And if you do us just one favour, it would be this. Just share it with one Chelsea fan who you think might like the podcast. We're still growing. We're still a lot smaller than the other podcasts out there, and we'd love to get more listeners. So if you can do us just one favour, it would be that. Just share this link to someone who you think might enjoy the 1905 podcast. But yeah, over to you, Joe, to wrap up the season. And yeah, let's hope for another season next year with as good a finish as this.
It's usually at this point I say something like, it's the day after the game, etc., etc. We've had a chance to calm down and think about the game a bit more in more detail, for example. But as I recorded my first voice note today, being Monday, it's already the day after, and no, I haven't yet calmed down. It's really funny. I have a real sense of joy and happiness in my heart, really, because winning the Conference League, it was nice. It's a nice trophy to win. They did well, they got to the final. In my wildest dreams, the World Club Cup was just going to be for us. We play a few games, we'll win a few, we'll see a bit of the new team, will they take it seriously? All those cliche things that have been said 100 times before. But I really didn't expect us to do that well. And to come full circle and be here now in this position as the trophy holders. Even when they were getting the trophy last night, I was going, this is incredible. This is actually incredible. What the hell has just happened in the last 3 or 4 weeks? What's happened to the team that has made them go from fairly ordinary, but winning ugly, let's be fair, winning games, but doing it quite an ugly way. And I can point to many games, Man United, Tottenham, Nottingham Forest, Leicester, etc. All 1-0 wins, all very scrappy. Played well on occasions, played well in spells in those games, but nothing like the football we've seen in the States. Particularly from, you could argue Esperance was a good win, but obviously they're not a massively difficult team to beat. But the football was much better in that game than Benfica, then Palmeiras, Fluminense, and then obviously yesterday against PSG. Just the level of football went up in tenfold. And Chris and I have spoken a lot of pod. I'm sure you have with your friends, and whether it be down the pub or off of football or training or something. And if you've got a mate that's a Chelsea fan, and you've probably gone oh yeah, they're playing all right, we're doing okay, but I'm not sure about next season, or I'm not sure about this, and I'd like to see a bit better football maybe, but at least we're winning. Whatever it is you're saying about your team, I never expected to be saying here right now that in 3 weeks, 4 weeks after the season's finished, the proper season, the Premier League season, I'll be sitting here saying that we're playing scintillating, mouth-watering, high intense, high pressured, skillful, but also with a calm head, a calmness to our game that makes us look just irresistible, completely irresistible. I'm still waxing lyrical to anyone who'll listen, basically, about how we played yesterday. And it was interesting. I went to work, and a lot of these people that I've spoken about before who are quite negative about the tournament, quite negative about Chelsea in general, because they're Liverpool fans or Tottenham fans, etc. I expect it. But there was nothing today. There was a quietness. I mentioned after the game, they asked me, did I watch it? Did I do this or that? And I was like, of course I bloody watched it. Are you insane? And I just feel like they can't say anything. These rival fans, it's a bit like, they were really good, weren't they? Had we won with a dodgy penalty or something, it'd have been, you were lucky again or whatever. And yeah, no one can say a word to us. We've done it in an incredible way. To win 3-0 against them is still mind-boggling to me. It was interesting to see Marquinhos today's come out for them and said basically they played their own game, they played their own way, the way they played all season long. They weren't going to change for anybody. They're the European champions, why should they? And I agree with him. But Maresca did what Luis Enrique didn't do, which was actually play the game on its own merit. Not just we're playing a routine team in France this weekend, so we're going to continue to play the same way and we'll get the same result. This was a different Chelsea, a different animal. And even at 1-0 or 2-0, Luis Enrique could have tactically changed something, and he didn't. He stuck to his guns, which is, admirable. But that's been Maresca's got a lot of heat in the past for doing the same thing. And yesterday, the tactical tweaks that he made were just wonderful. And I really hope this is something that we're going to see more and more next year. I hope we don't go back to seeing the same one-trick pony, possession-based stuff, tippy-tappy stuff at the back all the time, and then get caught edge of the box, concede a goal, and then rinse and repeat for like 4 weeks in a row before he goes, actually, that didn't work. I really hope I think, Chelsea are obviously a big, massive club. We should play our own football. We shouldn't change for, say, Southampton away or Leicester at home. We should be going, do you know what? We're good enough and we're brave enough to play our own style. But I also think the best managers are the ones that can adapt to anything. And Maresca showed last night that we were underdogs, but at the same time, there was a lot at stake for his own pride. Chelsea were going off now for 3 or 4 weeks. That team won't get together now for 3 weeks at least. Do you want your last memory to be, we got dick 5-0 by PSG and everyone was terrible when there was an argument in the dressing room afterwards? And no, he's going away with a 3-0 victory. The players believing in him that he's good enough and he's smart enough to change things tactically. I think the people you need to listen to are Reece James, Moises Caicedo, and Cole Palmer. These 3 players, over the course of the last few days, and add Levi Cole into that as well, over the last 3 or 4 days, these players, before the game, after the game, have all said things along the lines of, we're working hard, we have a game plan, we have a mentality where we know what we're doing, like, don't doubt us, stick with us, etc. The road might be bumpy sometimes, but we'll get there. And I think what we saw yesterday evening just epitomised all of that. And if they're happy and prepared to go along with Maresca, then that's good enough for me. If Cole Palmer was unhappy, there's no way he puts on a show like that last night. And people will say, "Oh yeah, but he's out for himself. He's in the shop window. He might not like Maresca, but he's playing for himself so he can get a move or whatever." I know Cole Palmer's not out to be actively being sold. I know that. But what I mean is, if he was unhappy, he would play like he was unhappy. And there was no sign of that throughout this tournament. He may not have scored in every round and in every game, but blow me, he's had some really important matches and some really important goals for us on the way into this tournament. So, yeah, the fact that they're all willing and to back the manager can only be a good thing. And there must be such a level of harmony now in that dressing room, and a real sense of belief that, I think next season anything is possible. But again, like Chris said, we'll come on to that when we come back next season. Going on to your question, Chris, about players looking at Chelsea as a possible club to come to, and also players that are maybe thinking about wanting to move. Now, there are those players, I'm going to name a couple here, Nkunku, Vega, and maybe even Nicholas Jackson, where you were thinking, I want to move, I'd like to move, but what am I moving to, and what am I moving away from? Now, there could be a deal in place for Vega already. Nkunku could be the same. Nicholas Jackson, I don't think is even guaranteed to leave yet, but agents are always looking for their players to move away to go to different teams. But if you're one of those players now, and there's probably other ones that I can't think of right now, you're going, Chelsea might be really good after all. And players like Nkunku have only ever come to Chelsea when we've been quite an average Premier League team, not really competing for much, not really competing for honours. And I know he himself hasn't played brilliantly well, but he came as a big name. He came as the hope, 2 seasons ago under Pochettino before his injury. A penny to his thoughts now. Is he thinking, actually, I wouldn't mind sticking this out and seeing where it goes and see what we can do? Or, like I say, these players already might have a move lined up and it might be too late for them. Equally, for players players that Chelsea are looking to bring into the club, they've signed so many players over the last 3 or 4 seasons that it's hard to even kind of imagine Chelsea signing another player. But if they have got somebody lined up, surely we're the easiest sell in the world now. Like, you don't need to really do too much. You just got to go and say, did you watch the PSG game? Well, that's kind of what we are. That's all you need to do. You don't even need to sell yourselves anymore. If you've got 3 clubs in for you and one of them is Chelsea, I'll be thinking, well, actually, this might be perfect for me. I quite fancy playing in this team. And if it's an area where you feel as though you can add something, then even better. Because who the hell wouldn't want to play with Cole Palmer and Moises Caicedo, just to name 2? And Chris, you've mentioned the goalkeeper situation there in your voice note, and I won't add anything more to that. But like you said, there is a possibility now that even they stick a pin in that for a season and go, yeah, we'll wait. But anybody thinking about coming to Chelsea now, I think is going to be going, yeah, that could be perfect. Look at their trajectory; they're going up and up and up. And I think João Pedro himself said the same thing. I think that's why he came. He can see where Chelsea are moving to, and sometimes it's hard to read between all the crap on social media and news outlets. And sometimes the good ones, not just the made-up ones on Twitter, the big outlets that kind of slate Chelsea on a regular basis. But if you're a football player playing against Chelsea and you've got friends in that team and you're saying, look, or let's say players meet up on international duty and you're talking about your team and your club and what's happening, you must say, yeah, look, don't worry, it's fine. It's we're going to do this, we're going to do that. We've got an idea where we want to go. And you're talking about your team, you're bigger them up. We just need this player that will transform us. Believe me, he's amazing. He's good. He's this, he's that. I think there's a lot of that probably goes on behind the scenes that none of us are privy to. And I just believe that if Chelsea pick up the phone to you in the next week or two and say, this is what we're doing, this is the role we've got for you, I think you're going to find it hard pushed to turn Chelsea down at the moment. And that is a really special place to be. And I'd just like to point out, looking at that trophy presentation, everybody seemed to be giving Todd Boehly an awful lot of love. And you can be an owner of a club or a chairman, as it was in the past, and you go up for these trophy presentations and no one really gives the owner a look in the eye. They all gave Todd Boehly a huge hug. You can tell he cares. He gave Reece a bit of a speech in front of Donald Trump. I think he was sort of saying, but probably words along the line of, this kid's incredible, traumatic injuries, but look at him now, coming up here and lifting this trophy. You can almost sense those words coming out of his mouth. And football players aren't stupid. If they can see they've got that kind of relationship with their owner, then that can only be a good thing. And I didn't see one person last night have their eyes down or not look at Todd Boehly when they were giving the awards out. So, yeah, real credit to him, because I think, Chris and I said this a long time ago before we even had a podcast. that when Todd Bowley and Egg Bowley took over the club, the first thing Bowley said was, it's not going to happen overnight, but we've come here to win, because if you win things, you make loads of money. And let's not be stupid enough to think that Todd Bowley hasn't put a load of money into this to get nothing out of it. They're businessmen. They're billionaires. They're not stupid people. They I'm not saying they're going to get every decision right between now and end of time, but they're not daft. And this is the first step in going towards them kind of creating their dynasty team, in some ways. And yes, there's a long way to go. They've not won anything in the domestic league yet. With this trophy and with the Conference League trophy and the Champions League next season, everything is pointing upwards for Chelsea, which is fantastic. I think I'm going to leave it there on the Chelsea chat, because we could talk all day and all night about Chelsea, and I wouldn't get bored today, quite frankly. But what I would like to say before we end the pod for the season is a couple of things. To Chris, he has been a stalwart. He has put these podcasts together. It takes time out of his day, out of his family time. He works at computers all day long, and yet he goes home and he still does this for me and for all of you that listen. And he's a superstar. He makes it sound like the best podcast there is out there, in my opinion. He is a true genius at what he does, and doing this with anybody else just wouldn't be right. Chris and I decided to do this a year or so ago, and I think for both of us, it's a great way to air our grievances, go to the games more often together, and have those memories of being at Tottenham at home or Liverpool at home, etc., whatever it might be. Those memories are there to last forever, and I just think if you can get yourself down to the bridge and watch a game with a friend or family member, then you just won't regret it. Enjoy the game, of course, but enjoy the memories of being with your friends and your family, because when it's all said and done, they're the best things. Going down and having a half-time beer with Chris, or when we go and do our squad audit in the Matthew Harding upper tier bar area before and after a game, they're the moments that I treasure the most. The football kind of is secondary at that point. Obviously I jest, but you know what I mean. We really feel as though we give good content, good opinions. We stay on the right side of positive. We are not negative people by where we actively go and look for something to moan about. I've complained. There was a podcast. We played Brighton away back-to-back in the FA Cup and the League around January time, I think, February, I can't remember exactly the date. And I was disgusted in Chelsea and what they were doing. The performances were dreadful. The manager's decisions were dreadful. Nothing was changing. We've had the same football week in, week out. I can be annoyed by that. I can be frustrated by that. It doesn't mean I don't like Maresca. It doesn't mean I don't like Chelsea. Those are real fan reactions, not some put on show for the public. We also don't just come on here and say we're going to finish in the top four if we don't think we actually can. Chris and I believed that we could finish in the top four this year, and maybe we got there with a little bit of luck this season. Maybe we did. That's quite possible, but we were still there at the end and we were still fighting. And when it was all said and done, we had our destiny in our own hands and we did it. And there wasn't many people that gave Chelsea a lot of hope that they could actually do it. But we did believe that Chelsea had a good enough squad to go and get into the top four. And we both just had that feeling that given the sporting directors a bit more time and the owners did a little bit more wheeling and dealing in the transfer market, that we would get our signings to a stage where you're now going, yes, hit, opposed to, he's developing, not too sure, maybe a miss. All the players now that we seem to be bringing through seem to be world-class players. We've already seen João Pedro and Rory Delap then, Liam Delap, and I've got real high hopes for Jamie Gittins when we finally see him in a blue shirt soon. And don't forget, we've also got Estival Willian coming from Palmeiras in the summer. So already two incredible wingers and two sort of striker / number 10s in certainly in João Pedro's case at the club already, and really the window's not even got going. So I don't believe Chelsea are going to do too much more in the transfer market. They might buy one or two, it's possible. They'll be focusing a lot now on outgoings where they can to recoup some money. But again, a huge thank you to all of you who've listened, supported us, sent us messages, emails, Instagram posts, whatever it might be. We couldn't do it without you. We love doing it. We're pleased that you enjoy what we do. I would say Chris has mentioned about sharing the pod with a friend. I echo that. And if you can leave us a glowing 5-star review, we would really appreciate it. It helps us move up the charts slightly, which we're doing week on week, to be fair. But it helps us just kind of be recognised by more people, and we can get more people to listen. And in which case, if that happens, we can do more. When you finish a podcast today, why don't you just go down, literally scroll down to the bottom of your phone there, click on review, leave us a 5-star review, and we'd be really eternally grateful for it. It's a huge thank you to everybody. Massive thank you to Chris. He's a superstar, like I said earlier on. And we look forward to seeing you in about 3 or 4 weeks' time when we've had a little break. So, yep, onwards and upwards, and what a fantastic end to Chelsea's season. Well done, the Blues.
Those were the Chelsea notes for this week. If you enjoyed the podcast, do us a favour and share it with a fellow Blue. And we'd love to hear your thoughts, so leave us a review wherever you're listening. Wherever you may be, stay carefree, and remember, every little thing's gonna be alright.